All right, friends, here we go. Another freeze-dried meal review. And today is one I've never had this one before. This is the Peak Refuel Sweet Pork and Rice. This, I think, is going to be a tasty bite. But before we go diving into this review, one of the things I want to address here first, and this is kind of piggybacking off of last week's review. Last week, you may recall, we reviewed the Mountain House chicken and rice meal, which was actually pretty decent. But one of the questions that I've seen kind of come up over and over again from a number of you is when questioning or when you bring up the longevity or the shelf life of these various meals, why do some have a much longer shelf life than others? So to answer this question, I'm going to use Peak Refuel and Mountain House as a good example with this. Now, Mountain House has been around, last week's meal had a shelf life of 30 years. Mountain House, I think, was founded in 1968 or 1969. So they've been around for a while, so they can technically, by government standards, they can state their meals are good because they've tested them. They've tested them for a certain period of time. Peak Refuel, now, while these meals are packaged the same, they all have the relatively the same oxygen absorber that's inside of them, and the freeze-dried process is, minus the recipes that each of these companies use, is pretty much all the same. But Peak Refuel, little fun fact, they started in 2018, so they have, hence the reason they show a shelf life of 5 years, because they've been around for 5 years. So as the company ages, because the process of how they put the meals inside these bags is relatively the same from one company to another, these meals will very likely last a lot longer than what they're legally able to put on these packages. So anyways, I suspect as the company gains more age, they will advertise longer shelf lives. So I hope that answers the question. Now, getting over to the fun stuff here. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to go through the details that I see on the package here, cover or jump over on the nutritional side of it. All these meals from a preparation standpoint are the same, but we will, in case this is your first video of this nature that you're watching, we'll cover that. And then ultimately at the end, I'm going to dig into this thing. I'll let you know what I like, dislike. You may agree, you may not. Keep in mind, these meals, eating, flavors, what one person likes doesn't necessarily mean you're going to like it. But if your taste buds happen to be aligned with mine, then hey, we're good to go. But anyway, and then ultimately at the end, I'm going to have a scorecard. So again, if you go out there and decide to pick up the sweet pork and rice, you may have a good idea what your dollar's going to get you. But anyway, as we look at the packaging right off the get-go, we see 40 grams of protein per pouch. There's 2 servings in this here. Just prepare, eat in pouch. Premium freeze-dried sweet pork and rice. Shredded pork with rice, vegetables with brown sugar glaze. Now, one of the things as I'm looking at this meal, I'm reminded that I really like about Peak Refuel, is these are fully freeze-dried meals, and they use 100% USDA certified meat. There's non-GMO ingredients, no fillers, preservatives, no TVP, soy-based proteins, and so they really focus on a certain pedigree of ingredients that they're stuffing into these things here. But anyways, jumping over onto the nutritional side of this here, again, you have 2 servings in here. As I say in each one of these things, I'm going to eat the whole thing. So I will put a screenshot on the video here so you can see. If you are a 1 serving person, obviously you can see what that is. But I'm going to base this on the entire pouch here, which is 800 calories. So total fat, we're looking at 17 grams, saturated fat 3.5 grams, trans fat 0, cholesterol 90 milligrams, sodium is 950 milligrams. So nice to see that underneath 1,000. Total carbohydrates, we are 125 grams. Okay, awesome. Dietary fiber, 10 grams. Let's see, total sugars, 52 grams, included added sugar, 53 grams, and then protein, 40 grams. Vitamin D, you have a bunch of other items down there. Vitamin D, calcium, iron, and potassium. That is in this thing as well. But I will put that, and I'll also put a screen grab of all the ingredients on the screen for you to review as well. Now, as I shared with you earlier, preparation for these meals are all the same. You're going to crack this thing open. You want to remove the oxygen absorber that's inside. Now, where things start separating from one brand to another is the amount of water that you're going to put in there to rehydrate these meals. Now, from my experience, I noticed that the Peak Refuels use a substantially lot less water than some of the other meals out there, with the exception of the breakfast skillet. That's one of their heavier meals in terms of water that you add. I want to say it's like 2 cups or something like that. But anyways, so we're going to tear this open. We're going to remove the oxygen absorber in there. Then we're going to add, in this particular case, 1 cup or 8 ounces of boiling water, which this water was already heated up, so we're good to go there. You're going to stir well, zip pouch, close, let it sit for 10 minutes, and then we're going to crack this thing open, and we're going to dive into it. All right, so let's crack this sucker open. Actually, I totally forgot. So what we will do here. Oh yeah, here we go. So I'm going to make sure this camera is where we want it to be. Okay, here is the oxygen absorber. We're just going to set that aside here. All right. Wow. So right away, now we know that once we add the water, that's really where things are really going to smell a lot more, but you can start smelling some of the ingredients already. So here we go. These are, I'm not sure what that is. That looks like more of the sauce stuff. We'll find out very shortly. We can see the rice here, and here's the big chunks of the pork. We see the corn in here. This looks, we have this tomato. Are those red peppers? Okay. One of the things I've said in previous episodes, one of the things I really like about Peak Refuel, and I think it's one of the reasons why I resonate and I keep coming back to these meals as being one of my favorites, is the size of the meat and the chunks that they use in here is they don't skimp. These guys really do it well. And I'm trying to think, I don't think there's a single Peak Refuel that I've had that hasn't been a good bite. And on that note, nor for Mountain House, although from a flavor standpoint, I really resonate with the Peak Refuels. The Backpacker Pantry, some of those flavors have been surprising me lately as well. But anyways, so we can see all the ingredients in here. So now what we're going to do is we're going to shovel this back into this pouch here, and then we're going to get that water in there while that is still piping hot, and let it do its thing for 10 minutes. And friends, then we are off for the rest of it in. Awesome. All right, so now we're going to take our piping hot water, and like I have mentioned a handful of times in the past, what I like to do is just get partial amount of that water in there, start stirring that up, start getting that moving around. And as usual, once that water hits right there, yeah, you can really start smelling something absolutely magical taking place here. That, and I am, see, the days I get to shoot these videos, these are my favorite because, well, I get to eat, and so in a lot of cases, you're eating some very good food. I've mentioned a number of times in the past, I'd be willing to bet. So here's the thing, and I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again in the event that you have not seen some of my other videos. So when I go out camping and so forth, I love to cook. I love to cook, whether I'm camping or at home. And so one of the things, so when I first got introduced to these sort of meals, and it goes back much further from military days, but military days, it was out of necessity and so forth. But with these, I originally got these, and I think it was Mountain House was the original packaging that the brand that I was using for some time, but I got them in case of emergency break glass. And then one day I started mowing into them a little bit further and started realizing, hey, there's some really good, really tasty flavors. All right, there we go. There's some really tasty flavors. And now I eat these things quite often. Now, this is where you have to be very conscious of some of the brands that you're eating because, again, one of the things that we score up on the end here is that sodium content. So some of these can have very high sodium, and that's the thing that you need to watch out for. Some sodium's good for you. Okay. Hey, Siri, set timer for 10 minutes. So some sodium, having a decent amount of sodium is good, but then some of them really do get high up there. But to close off where I was leading with this a moment ago, I started realizing, especially some of these companies have just really gourmet meals, and I have stated this in the past. I'd be willing to bet if I took certain meals and prepared them, put them in a bowl, and had a guest over, and where the kitchen looked like I actually did something in there, I'd be willing to bet most people would not know that these came out of a bag. They're that good. I share that with you because it's funny, because my wife looks at these things and she's like, no, I can't do it. But as I share with her, they're really, you have to dive in. And once she tastes them, she gets where I'm coming from with these. But anyways, if you've not had these freeze-dried meals before and you think you're jumping back to old school military days with the T-Rats or anything like that, things have changed dramatically. You definitely got to give these some of these newer ones a go. But with that said, we have 8 minutes 47 seconds here, so we're gonna let this thing do its thing, and then we'll jump back up and finish this off.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
All right. It is that time. 10 minutes has gone by, and so we are ready to dive into this. And wow. A good chili. And I know this is not a chili, but boy, that's the first thing that this reminds me of. You can smell the beans, the peppers in that seasoning. Boy, this smells awfully delicious. Okay, let's not waste any time. Let's get this. And again, as I cracked the joke last time, no grace in pouring this out. Let's just get it out and see what we are working with here. Okay. All right, make sure the camera is on where we need it to be. Okay, so as we look at this here, we can see these beans are all hydrated. The red peppers there. Wow, this looks. Wow, actually, it looks like the packaging, which is a lot of the cases you don't see, but actually. Oh, okay, I was going to say, I don't see the corn as much. I noticed the corn before, but you could see it there. The corn is just kind of blending in a little bit there. On the package, the corn's a little bit more yellow, but it's here. It's blended in there. So this looks pretty darn good. And all those big pork chunks right there ready to sink your teeth into. But this smells absolutely fantastic. It reminds me of chili. And so, but anyways, let's dive into it. Wow. You really taste that brown sugar. You can really, wow. That is really now, of course, I'm taking a couple bites here because, of course, I'm looking to see how the texture turned out and flavors. And I'm noticing a nice blend of the veggies. Definitely one of the first things that I noticed here, which I mentioned a moment ago, is that sweet brown sugar. I mentioned in the beginning of this video, I've never had this one before. This is really, okay, so it's the black beans in there, brown sugar. Okay. This is really, really good. It has a kind of middle of the road flavor in a good way. What I'm saying is from a seasoning, let me take that back. From a seasoning standpoint, it's like middle of the road. Every bite, there's a few things that stand out for me. Yeah, that balance of the rice and the pork. But from a flavor standpoint, you're reminded of the black beans that are in this in the brown sugar. It's really a well balanced. I'm enjoying this. Then from a texture standpoint, you have things like the rice, the pork, and the beans that are all kind of, I would categorize as kind of the same to some degree. And then you have those pieces of corn kind of popping as you're eating. This is really, really, it's funny because I think I've said it 3 times already. And I have to be upfront here. For main course meals, I normally don't like things that are sweet. Like when we go to barbecue, like when it's time to, when I visit my family up in New York or I head out to Texas, I very rarely will get ribs or barbecue that has a sweet to it. It just doesn't resonate with me. Not on a regular basis. So let me clarify. It's not something I'm going to go out there and order. If somebody orders it, yeah, I'm going to eat it. This is really, really good. I share that little factoid with you because, again, I normally don't like sweet, but this is good. It's funny because as I do these reviews, I say 2 things. You have the scorecard that's going to be coming up here in a minute, but then I also say, yeah, whether a meal will end up in my trailer or not. So it's kind of like a 2-part scoring system. This will definitely end up in my trailer. So let's take a look at the scorecard for Peak Refuel's sweet pork and rice. All right, friends, and there you go. This has been another freeze-dried meal review. Of course, this is the Peak Refuel sweet pork and rice. Now, if you're interested in giving this a go yourself, I will put a link down below in the description so you can give it a taste and see what your taste buds think for yourselves. But friends, that isn't. Actually, what I'll do is I'll put links in the description as well to some of the other reviews that we've done as well. But friends, that is all I have here for you. So I'm going to be shutting off the cameras. You get out there, stay healthy, and find your adventure.